The human experience, with our flaws, our passions, our triggers, our inspirations, and our imprints. If we could see behind everyone's story, then perhaps what we would have is deep compassion. In this podcast, I get the chance to explore these stories from some truly fascinating people in some honest and heartwarming conversations. And best of all, I get to share these discussions with you. I'm Lael Stone, and this is Humans Being.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Humans Being. It's lovely to have you here. My humanness for this week has been all about support and our support network. So a beautiful friend who's also my personal trainer just had a baby a few weeks ago. And the doula in me was like, I need to make you a meal train and I just want to bring you all the things to love on you. And, I organized that for her so she could be really held in that postpartum period. And it really, really made me reflect actually about how much or how far I have come with my relationship with support. So when I had my babies 25 to nearly 26 years ago, I was a young mum. I had no idea that was even a thing. I had just a story that you have a baby and you just kind of get on with it because that's what the women in my family had done for a long time. And then a few years later, I had another baby. And then years later that I had another baby. And so I had this period of 10 years where I was either pregnant or breastfeeding and raising little kids. And probably as I look back, running on such depletion because I wasn't nourishing my body. I wasn't moving my body. And I actually had a really, really crappy relationship with support and with self-care. And I actually had no relationship with self-care because my belief system around self-care was, well, if you take care of your needs, then, you're neglecting everyone else. Or if you actually stop, then you're lazy. So that was a big imprint. I've written about that in my book. But really, it's taken me a long time after having kids to realize just how beneficial and how important support is. And in working with mums for a really, really long time, what I've discovered is that so many of us have a really complicated story around receiving support or around our relationship to self-care. And so now as I'm, helping my beautiful friend, cooking her beautiful, nutritious food and checking in on her a lot and really wanting to love on her as she's navigating this next stage of her life, it's really made me reflect about how far I've come with my relationship with support, but also to all those beautiful young mums out there, because I know a lot of mothers listen to this podcast. I really invite you to examine your relationship with support and receiving, because as I sit at this place in my life now where I'm now menopausal and I'm navigating my body and the changes that have happened, I am realizing that it is from the depletion from many, many years ago that is what I'm struggling with right now as my body is changing and trying to catch up. As my lovely Chinese medicine doctor says to me, she's like, Lael, this is like 25 years of blood deficiency of, your kids sucking you dry. I was like, yeah, okay. That feels pretty true. And I'm now having to do a lot of repair and catch up for myself. So here is an invitation to everybody out there to check in with what your relationship is around support and taking care of your body and nourishing it through all stages and seasons of your life, because it matters deeply. So that is my humanness for this week. Now, my beautiful guest today is, I'm sure, someone who has probably a lot to say about motherhood and support. So we're going to dive into that in a second. But I am so ridiculously honored to have the amazing Teresa Palmer with me today. Hi, Teresa. Welcome.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to dive in.
I'm going to just read out your bio quickly, just so people can get a snapshot of who you are. And then I'd just love to explore with you, firstly, just that piece around support. So Teresa Palmer is an Adelaide-born actress, author, wellness entrepreneur, and podcaster. Her career started when she won, I love this, the local Search for a Movie Star competition in 2003, and was then cast in an independent Australian drama before transitioning to Hollywood. Her career spans more than 2 decades and includes major studio films alongside independent productions. In recent years, she's redirected significant energy towards Australian productions, appearing in the binge miniseries Mixtape, the ABC drama The Family Next Door, and the Australian romantic drama Edition. Off screen, Teresa's married to American actor-director Mark Webber and is mum to 5 kiddos and stepmom to another lovely human. And she and Sarah Wright Olson co-founded the parenting platform Your Zen Mama, which I highly recommend checking out, which operates as a blog, podcast, and community resource covering pregnancy, birth, and the full arc of parenthood. And also, she runs Love Well, an organic plant-based supplement brand targeting the nutritional needs of mothers and children. I probably needed that 25 years ago. And she's coming to me from Canada right now, filming God of War, where I just think this is the most apt thing ever. Teresa is playing the goddess of fertility. Oh my goodness, were you just made for this role?
Oh my gosh.
So thank you for being here. Welcome. I would love to start with just what I was talking about at the beginning there about that humanness piece for me that's alive at the moment around support and what that has been throughout my life. What is your relationship with receiving support, or even just how it looks for you today doing all the things that you do?
I'm not very good at asking for help. I feel like I think I fell in love with the idea of motherhood sitting next to my Nana Dora Sanders as she would sit in her big armchair and she would hold my hand and she would tell me stories of raising her 8 children. And it was like this really beautiful, she raised her kids in community. And so it was, she was living in England and she had her girlfriends who also had, it was the time where everyone was having really big families. And they were a Catholic family, and my Nana and her friends would go to the local park with all these kids. And sometimes it'd be 20 kids and 3 mums, and everyone was just helping each other out. But I always looked at my Nana and thought she did the majority of this on her own, while my pop, John, he was at work. He was a school teacher and a pianist, a piano teacher. And my Nana did it all on her own. So in my head, it was sort of imprinted on me, you can have a large family and you do it on your own. So I remember when I had my first kid and I started working, luckily my husband wasn't working and he was sort of writing things on the side. And I don't have to share my mother with any other siblings. So my mum was with me and we just kind of pieced it together with my mum and my husband. And I felt really uncomfortable at the idea of having a nanny, which was very much the way in America. It was like, everyone I knew in the industry who were having babies had a nanny. And I never, still to this day, I still have not had a nanny because I've got this story in my mind that I should be able to do it all. And I think that's, I'm not alone with that story. I think a lot of us feel that way. Like, well, of course we have to juggle all of them. We wear all the hats. And I think that I've softened that and accepted help more in the last couple of years. As my mum has gotten older, she's in her 70s now, I know what her capacity is. And I'm also realizing that Mark and I, we spread ourselves so thin. We have so many children. We're meeting the needs of all these individual kids. We're also running businesses and he's trying to get his projects off the ground. I'm shooting things. And so finally, for the very first time, about a month ago, we agreed to get an au pair while I'm shooting. And it's the first time in 12 years. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have this proper ongoing support. And I have this beautiful young Aussie girl who the kids love, and we are tag teaming. And it means that I am able to take one of my children out for one-on-one time. And so I think my relationship with accepting support has shifted. It's like I had to turn 40 years old. And then suddenly I had the download of all these big dreams that you have. You can reach those things, but you need to find the time in your day to do it. And that looks like saying yes to some support. So that's been really interesting for me.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because I think a lot of women will relate to it, because those imprints are very strong, aren't they, from those family of origins that we come from, of like, well, this is how you do it. And I often say to women these days, parenting doesn't look like what it used to look like when our mums and our grandmas were, their job was mainly just the house and the kids.
Yeah.
Whereas we're kind of working at the same time, and then we're trying to keep up with what we're seeing on Instagram, and and our kids are doing 7 activities, and there's a whole lot of other stresses that are going on. And we always talk about, and I'm sure you and Sarah talk about this, is we need the village. Like the village, we're not meant to raise our babies on our own in our houses by ourselves. Yet with the lack of the village, then we feel like we have to do it all. And then when we don't feel like we're doing it well, then we make ourselves wrong, like we're failing as mothers.
Yeah.
And then it's just a perpetual cycle. And I think that support piece is just so pivotal, isn't it, around how to do all the things with being held within it. And I love that that's alive for you right now, that you can see actually there's so much goodness that comes from that, because it allows you to have that one-on-one time with your kiddos and take care of you within that. It's
and
really
even
powerful.
Just errand running. Like now I was like, okay, I have a podcast at this time, but we're out of ink and I have to fill out a school application for my son Forrest, but I need to print out the application, but we're out of ink. And she was like, I'll put Lotus in the stroller and I'll walk up and I'll go pick up some ink, and then you can do the application when you're done. I was like, oh my God, what is this life? And Sarah, my beautiful friend Sarah, who I do the Mother Days with, she's had a live-in full-time nanny for 12 years. And I remember feeling so inadequate, because I'm like, I feel like Sarah is holding up so much more of the podcast and doing so much more of it. And I'm just like turning up to the mic and like trying to be on time and juggling all these things. And I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I have been snoozing on this for so long out of this pride that I had to do it all myself.
So wild. Yeah.
But there are only so many hours in the day. And I have 5 kids and all of them have different needs. And I'm homeschooling at the moment and I'm shooting this show and I'm like trying to keep the house clean. And I got an email today from we're living in this like beautiful house here in Vancouver, and we forgot that a cleaning team comes in every 2 weeks, and I forgot that they were coming on this one day, and they walk into the house and I was like, oh my God, oh no, quick, kids, go. Like everyone's like running to the playroom, like pick up the toys, and then I got an email today from the company being like, hey, so look, the cleaning team have said to us that they really do need to be able to clean properly, and when there's toys everywhere and like art activities on the ground and I was like, oh my God, it's just another ball that I've dropped. And it is what it is. And I got this lived-in house and I spend an hour every night at the end of the night tidying everything, picking things up, making sure we're all reset for the next day. And it is exhausting. Like it is. And you find that you burn the candle at both ends.
Yeah.
And this is just the season of life that I'm in. It is really, really, really busy. And I want to be there hands-on with my children at the pickups, taking them to the activities. And this is the life that I'm in right now. And one day it'll be slower and I'll be moving into another season.
It does. Like I relate to that now, having adult kids who are all still kind of living at home, which is gorgeous. I mean, they're about to go and start traveling. So it's very beautiful because I know that this is probably the last time we'll all be together. So I'm kind of just savoring it. And I remember those days of just the just how constant it was, just the balls of what you're trying to do, and then you're trying to work, and I mean, I laugh when you're talking about the cleaner. Like I used to have to we've got to do the clean before the cleaner comes because it's so crazy. My husband would be like, isn't the cleaner coming to do that? And I'm like, no, there's a standard you have to start at before they can come and clean. It's pretty nuts. I mean,
they were like, would you like us to purchase this storage stuff? And I was like, I'm good. It's all good. I'll just be more on top of it next time. Like usually the house is really clean, but that day I forgot and it was a bomb, and it is what it is. So doing things imperfectly.
Totally. And it just makes me think about how extraordinary women are, really, how extraordinary mothers are, of the hats that we wear and the balls that we juggle. And then I think what breaks my heart a bit is then we give ourselves a hard time that we think we're not doing it well. When we stood back, we're doing like 5 full-time jobs all at once. and we're also trying to listen to our kids' feelings, and we're also trying to make sure they're eating well, and all the pieces within it are really huge. So, you know, I think as women, we need to just be like, it's cool if it's a mess.
Give ourselves
right?
grace.
Yeah,
we always
totally.
say, just give yourself grace. You're doing a great job.
That's exactly it. So I first came across your podcast with Sarah, Mother Days, and I instantly remember watching just you guys thinking, oh my God, who are these two beautiful women talking about birth, parenting, and just the consciousness of all that you were doing. And I'm curious as to, you know, you've had this life as an actress and, you know, being in this whole other world. And then there's this kind of probably the opposite of that world, which is conscious parenting and just, you know, the beautiful stuff that you share around birth and what it is to be a mother. Has that blossomed mainly just because you were journeying it yourself when you first became a mum? Were you looking for that? Were you like, whoa, what is this all about? Like, how did that kind of awaken for you?
I mean, the seed was ingrained. I think it was just watching my nana and hearing these stories of my nana raising these children. And I mean, my greatest dream was to be a mother. Like, all my imaginary play from such a young age was like me and 6 children, like for years and years and years and years. And even my first big meeting in Hollywood, I announced at the meeting, like, and just so you know, I'm going to be a mother first and foremost. And I remember my manager in the background being like, no, stop, shut up, shut the Australian up. She's oversharing. And I didn't even have a boyfriend at the time, by the way. And I was like, this is what I'm planning to do. And the end. And I remember just seeing like the jaws of all these like men in the room being like, what? But anyway, the agency signed me. So it's always been my dream. And I just thought, I'm so passionate and I love performance and storytelling and being a part of special, beautiful, impactful, poignant stories. I love that. And I've always, I think, observed people's behavior and have been like a sponge. And so there's just this other avenue that has really filled me up and lit me up. And so both these passions I've had for a really long time. And I just knew that even if my career kept going at the rate it was going, and it sort of snowballed quite quickly because my first film premiered at Cannes, and you know that's that stamp of approval. You've got that first film, it's at Cannes, the biggest film festival in the world, and it was my first movie, so it gave me such a leg up in this industry and made everything else a lot easier to be able to achieve. But even at that young age, I was like, well, that I'm still gonna have a million children, like that's the plan. And then it just started to unfold when I met my person and started having children with him. I think I had done so much research into the type of parent I wanted to be. I had already read What to Expect When You're Expecting at age 20. And I didn't even have a boyfriend at the time. I just like read it because I was excited to become a mom. And that was a really just interesting thing about me. And everyone knew that about me. And then when I met my husband, I had really started looking into this wonderful, very famous midwife called Ina May Gaskin, who you know. Ina May, everyone loves, especially in the birth world, everyone knows she's like the pioneer for so much of this, the birth stuff that we all like to talk about. And I discovered her book, Spiritual Midwifery. And it was
a cracking book, isn't it? Like,
it is
it's so out there.
It changed my life.
Yep.
And I read it maybe 2 years before I met my husband. I remember I was sitting in Big Sur, which is just hilarious, like the most beautiful place in California. It's so hippie and earthy and crazy energy in this place. And I'm sitting in this wooden dome house called the Butterfly House, reading through these birth stories and these women talking about these psychedelic births and these rushes and one with the universe. And I was like high off of this stuff. And then I discovered this website called mysticmama.com, and it was kind of this intersection of spirituality and motherhood. And it piqued my interest and it lit me up. unlike anything else. And I knew then and there, okay, I want to birth like these women are birthing in this book. All the representation I'm seeing on screen is like screaming, so much pain, women lying on their backs, being told when to push and panic. And it was so fear-inducing. I remember like that representation was like, I was terrified of birth before I read about these positive birth stories. And I thought, oh, I didn't even know that birth could look and sound like this. I'm just going to pull this little thread. And I kept pulling and I realized like there are millions of these positive, incredible, beautiful stories out there. And they're getting drowned out in so many ways because the media is focusing on a lot of the fear mongering surrounding birth. And birth is extreme and wild, and it can definitely not go according to plan. And there's room for all of that as well. But why was it I finding it so hard to find these positive, affirming birth stories? And then that's when my interest in the birth world really begun. And I met my man and it was on. I was like, and we're having a baby. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, boom, pregnant. Let's do it. And we were pregnant within 6 months of knowing each other. And then we got pregnant and then we're like, oh, I guess we'll get engaged now. And okay, well, let's get married. And I was, 6 months pregnant at my wedding, and he had already had a kid. So Isaac, my stepson, was 4 when I met him, and they were practicing a really beautiful, and by they I mean Mark and his ex-girlfriend Frankie, who I call my baby mama. She's one of my besties. She and Mark, they were really obsessed with this idea of reparenting. And it was a really interesting concept, the way that you talk to your children and engage with them. And it just made a whole lot of sense. So I learned a lot about I was learning about birth, and then that's just what imprinted on me. And I was like, right, this is my vibe. This is how I want to raise my kids. And really the rest is history.
I wonder, I love that story that it found you, because I think that for some women, when a book like that lands in their lap or they see something or someone tells them those stories, it can awaken something in them that says, that is what feels right for me. And equally, as you say, working as a childbirth educator for a long time, the biggest obstacle to birth was fear, and was the indoctrination that we'd had through the media around this is what birth looks like. So it's a huge thing to undo. I'm wondering, with your first birth then, going in with all this, with Ina May in your, in your energy field and what you want, was it a shock for you what it took in your body? Like that first birth experience, did it kind of blow you open in the way you were hoping, or were you like, whoa, that was intense?
It's funny. I think the birth I was 27, I was really young. And I think the birth that I envisioned was like the birth I ended up having for my second baby and subsequent babies, especially this last birth I just had, which was all those things from spiritual midwifery, the psychedelic wild birth. I was envisioning that for my first birth, and I'd really prepped myself for that. And I was like, that's the kind of birth I'm having. But also, I'm in my 20s. I'm still working on myself, and I hadn't really grasped the concept of breaking up with expectations. And so I just assumed my birth was going to go one way, and I ended up having a home birth transfer because I had a posterior baby. And I had a stop-start labor pattern over 3 days with no sleep. And I sort of limped my way through to 10 centimeters dilated, but all of the intensity was in my back, and I wasn't expecting that. I'd been reading about feeling it being wrapped at the front of my tummy, and everything was in my back. And then there was no patterns to it. And then I wouldn't have contractions for an hour. And my midwife was she was so sweet. But by the end, she was like, look, the baby's now been out of the water for almost 3 days. And if you have what's called pre-rupturing of the membranes, which of course but for people listening, that you sort of are up against the clock at that point because there is an increased risk of infection to the baby, to you. And she eventually called it and was like, look, you're just not going to be able to manually push this baby under that pelvic bone without any contractions. You've now not had contractions at 10 centimeters. You are fully dilated. You've had no more contractions. The baby's in a funky position. Like, we need to get to the hospital. So I ended up going to the hospital. They gave me some Pitocin and I still got to have a vaginal birth. I didn't opt for the epidural. I just was like, I've already come this far. I don't need it. Like, just give me the Pitocin, kickstart the contractions. I'll push the baby out. And it was looking at the photos of myself right after birth and this like kind of stunned, I look like a stunned mullet. Like my eyes are so wide. My whole face is swollen like I've been in a fist fight. Like all the capillaries are broken on my face. I had been through the ringer, but I had been birthed as a mother.
Yeah.
And it was just this remarkable, overwhelming. I remember just the love pulsing through me. And I just was like, that journey, that transition into motherhood for me, it had to be that reckoning. And it changed me. And the fact that I could do it and I can do extremely hard things and I got through the other side of that and my plan went really wonky and wobbly,
Yeah.
but it was a great gift and a great lesson for the journey of motherhood, the peaks and the valleys and the unexpected turns and the pivots that you make along the way. And I wouldn't change that birth for anything. It was perfect the way it was.
Yeah. Isn't that, I mean, it's so poetic on some level. I often used to say to women, your first birth is your initiation. Like it is. And we can go in with these ideas of this is how it's going to be. And sometimes it's just not like that because it's designed to help you, you know, let go of your expectations of how you think it should look. Like it's the ultimate of surrender. I mean, I look back at myself, 25-year-old, naive. I mean, I definitely didn't know really about birth when I had my son, but I had grown up with quite a spiritual mom and, you know, I was very aware and I'm like, I'm just going to have a water birth in the birth center and we'll just burn oils. Burning oils was going to save me. That was my thing. I'll just have the essential oils. It'll be fine. And then I had pre-labor that went on for days and then I was exhausted and a bit like you, a positioning issue and, you know, and had no idea. And we transferred to the hospital and they're like, we're going to induce you. I didn't even know what that was. And then it just was, you know, that beautiful cascade that happens.
Intervention.
And much like you know, when my son was born, there's photos of me holding him and the look on my face is just like, what the fuck was that? Like, and I look back now on what I understand about birth. I realized like I was in such shock for a good, I reckon, year of his life. Like I was doing the things, I was breastfeeding and I was taking care of him, but the experience was so massive. And back even then, there was no birth debriefing. There was no, are you okay? Like what was going on? It was, and also with that story of you just get on with it. I think I spent the first year of his life just, you know, replaying his birth. I look back now and think I probably had PTSD from that experience, but it just wasn't picked up. And then that's what got me when I had my second baby, I had her at home and, you know, that experience of when and often that second birth can be so healing.
Yes.
Having her at home and holding her in the water and just thinking like, I just climbed Everest.
Yes.
Like people know how amazing I am. Like I just sat there I could take on the world. And I remember just thinking, this is what birth's meant to feel like, this experience, not that I feel broken and having worked in birth for a long time and listening to a lot of birth stories, I know a lot of women do feel like that when they give birth and that can be so painful and those stories that they can often still carry. You know, I'm a big fan of birth debriefing and working through that because it can have a massive impact on your mothering journey when we're still holding those stories. So birth is just like the rite of passage of what it is as we step into motherhood is so profound. Just before we were doing this interview, I was looking on your Instagram and seeing Lotus's birth, and the part that I loved the most is I think her head is out and you look up at your kids and you say something like, how awesome's this? Or how great is this?
How awesome is this?
How
This is
good
it. Yeah.
And I am like, oh my God, I had tears in my eyes watching it because I was like, that is just the most divine imprint for them, for you guys as a family, seeing their mum, you know, in this beautiful power, blissed out state. Like they've watched you work hard and then you've done this beautiful hard thing and they're all there. And, you know, I used to go to a lot of home births and I think one of my most favorite parts was watching the kids who were held in this big experience where it was very normalized, where they watched their sibling come into the world. It really is incredibly exquisite, isn't it? An experience like that.
Best. It is the most wonderful thing that I got to share that with them. And Bodhi since has said to me, who's 12, he was like, thank you, Mum, for showing me that, because one day when my wife is giving birth, I'm going to know what to do. And when she's at home birthing into the water, I'll know exactly how to support her. And I was like, and you're also going to make sure that however she wants to birth, she doesn't just have to birth at home into the water. You will just support whatever birth plan she has. He has it imprinted that like also women they birth at home in the water. But it was just remarkable. And then with their tears in their eyes and seeing like, whoa, like the vocalization, the strength that it takes, like, but then the elation and the giddiness. And we didn't find out that she was a girl. We were all expecting a little boy to come out. So I just was like, what? It's a girl? Like I just was completely wrong, by the way. My mama instincts were so off. But yeah, it was just the most joyful thing. And we still all talk about it as a family. And she has been the greatest gift for all of us. We still can't believe she's here. Every morning we're all like, oh my gosh, she's just the best.
It's so beautiful to hear. Like I can feel that in your words as you're talking about it. I'm like, I remember that feeling of just the beauty of the family unit. And sometimes when you know that there's not whether it's a completion or not, but just how beautiful it is for that next little person to be there. I think when I had my third, we had this like, we're complete. And I remember my son, because he was 7 or 8 when we were pregnant. And when I remember telling the kids that we're pregnant, and my son turned to me and he said, you know that I called her in. And I was like, what? And he goes, I wanted her. I told her to come. And I was like, okay. And so then he was like really protective of me when I was pregnant, and we were planning a home birth. I ended up transferring. I had a cesarean because she was a footling breech and it all just, it was.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But we were planning to have her at home. And so he was adamant. He goes, I will catch the baby. And I was like, no, darling, like, we'll just wait and see. And he's saying to my husband, Dad, it's not your job. It's my job.
Oh my gosh.
He was so adamant that he's like, this is my baby. And I'm like, okay, buddy, we'll just see what happens. And anyway, it was beautiful. And do you know what's really heartwarming? I'm just speaking of this now. There's 8 years difference between my oldest and youngest, and they're about to go traveling together. And he's taking her to Europe in a few weeks to go traveling for like months. And he's been many times, but he's like, I want to take her and help her see. And I just, every time I think about that,
gosh.
Oh my God, like, the beauty of it, the full circle.
That is the dream. That is the dream. Like, you've obviously created an environment in that home that has connected all these children in a way that now that they're like birthed out and into the world, they're like off being their own little people. The fact that they've like come back home to each other is so special. I think the greatest gift. And I think it's a healing balm for me because I didn't have any full siblings. I had much older half sisters and I had older stepbrothers, but it was just my mum and I. And it's like a healing balm watching my children and knowing that they will always have each other. They will always be a unit. And that is the greatest gift.
Yeah. I say to my kids all the time when they used to fight and when they were younger, I would say to them, you know, you all grew in the same place, my stomach. And they'd be like, ew, Mum. I'm like, it's true. I grew you all you all started in the same place, right? You are all always connected. And they'll be like, yeah. And, you know, in those years of, you know, those middle years where there's fighting and sibling rivalry and all that kind of stuff. And then as they kind of get a bit older and then they found their way back to each other, which is just so rich and beautiful. And I say that to parents all the time now when their kids are fighting a lot, you keep holding that container for them, like keep holding that hope, because, they're figuring these dynamics out. And yeah, it's such a beautiful, rich thing. I'm wondering, I love hearing you talk about birth so passionately. I'm wondering if, the way you've birthed, and birthing is so much about surrender. Do you think that has helped you become a better actress, because it is all about letting go? It is all about just trusting your instinct. Like, can you see the parallels for that for you?
Definitely. I actually only just saw them just as you said that. I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't even thought of that.
Yeah,
but
right.
It is true. There's like a real, there is a correlation. And I think it is, as a performer, like tomorrow, for instance, I have one of the biggest scenes of my entire season that I'm shooting with Mandy Patinkin, who's like an incredible actor from Princess Bride and all the things. And I'm like, I'm going up against a master tomorrow and I have got to lead this scene. My character's leading this scene and it's intense and emotional and all these things. And so I've done all the preparation. I've prepped in every way. I have siphoned everything I can from this scene. And what always serves me best is being in the moment, so present, letting go of all the preparation, knowing that it's there somewhere, the toolbox is in there and I can dip into it, but actually just reacting to what I'm getting in the scene is really where the magic is. And birth is so similar. You do all the prep, you do all the things, you learn, you just like siphon from all of these things, these positive birth stories you've been watching, all the Ina May Gaskin stuff, your past births that you've had and you want to learn from, or you want to do things differently, or you remember things that worked really well. And then you'll let it all go. And that is that key word, surrender. Acting is so similar to that. And I've probably only come into that probably in the last, I feel like I've been doing my best work in the last sort of 10 years, but especially more recently in the last 5 years or so. I sometimes look back on old work of mine. I'm like, and this is mortifying. I can't even watch this. And the kids, a lot of them are these movies that the kids want to watch. And I'm like, I can't, why did I do that? I can't say. And the kids, of course, just like, this is such a cool movie. And all I'm doing is the self-critical voice is like, oh God, what was I thinking? I was just so green. I didn't know what I was doing. And it's funny because birth can be like that too. Your first birth to your fifth birth. Yeah. It's ever evolving.
And it's parenting as well, because I think what you're saying actually, I think a lot of what I've discovered in parenting too is the time I'm the best mum is when I'm spacious, which means I am just being there and what they're bringing me, I'm able to meet, whether they need a bit of playfulness, whether they need me to hold a limit, whether they need me to just listen to their feelings. I think it is exactly what you're saying. When you the toolkit's in there and then you actually meet them in that moment is when you can be in that deep presence. That's the connectedness, isn't it, that you have with another human, which I'm imagining is what happens when you're working and you're performing, to just allow that to come through. And I find, I don't know, over 26 years now of being a mum, you learn all these things to then actually, it looks like you're doing nothing, but you're doing everything by being spacious and being present. And I see that that's actually a gift for most of life too, whether you're in a meeting or whether you're working or whether you're parenting. Our ability to be still and to be open allows kind of our beautiful intuitive wisdom and magic to come through.
I love that. And I call that the inflow state. You're just in flow. Yeah. And you've done all the prep. You've done all the things. You've spoken to the people. You've done. And I think you're so right that this can apply to every aspect of life. I always use the word manifesting so much in my life and in so many interviews and I've used that word. But a lot of it is doing the work, taking the inspired action, figuring out the goals, figuring out the things that you want to call in. And then it's the let go, it's the surrender, it's the inflow state in gratitude, in deep gratitude. And that has served me so well in my life in every aspect. And I always return back to that place. If I'm feeling sticky or wobbly or vulnerable or something's going on, I return back to the inflow state and the deep, deep, deep gratitude. And living from that high vibrational headspace, it is just pulling more high vibrational people in, connections in, opportunities in, beautiful children in. I mean, I don't know if I expected to have this many kids. I wanted it, but I let go of that expectation, and it has unfolded in the most beautiful way. And of course, I've had my valleys where I've had losses and things haven't gone exactly to the plan, but what gifts, everything has been a gift and an opportunity to learn and grow.
And I think when we can stay open to seeing it that way, that's where the transformation happens, doesn't it?
Definitely.
It's so profound. I wonder, when you think about your motherhood journey, what has it taught you about you in those challenging times, or what has it made you confront, and what have you had to really go, oof, that's a sticky part that I need to heal, that you've seen through your kids mirroring it back?
I think kids are our greatest teachers. I know we've heard that so much, but I'm particularly interested in parts work at the moment, which has been this really fascinating concept of when in your childhood you were faced with a particularly scary or traumatic or vulnerable moment, and your need wasn't met in the way that the need should have been met at that age. Like, a part of you splits off at that age, and that little version of yourself lives in you. And maybe you were 3 years old and something happened to you and your need wasn't met at that moment. And then something else happened to you at age 7. And what I've noticed, even though I had such a happy, beautiful childhood, and not without its challenges, and my mum has schizoaffective disorder, and it was just her and I. And so that came with it a lot of challenges, but also just I was so connected to my mum. I was my mum's everything. And even just having that immense love and connection and attention from her was just so beautiful. And so I don't take that for granted, and I wouldn't change anything. But I have been able to go through and process 0 to 17 and look at little times in which I needed extra nurturing. And you have the opportunity when you are parenting to reparent that little child within yourself. And oftentimes it'll be triggered from something that your 7-year-old child does or says, or something goes on, and suddenly you feel that little 7-year-old in you who, I actually didn't have my need met, and now my feelings are coming out in a way that my emotional system, it's skew whiff. It needs some tending to, and it needs some nurturing. And so when we can tend to our own nervous system, we can show up in abundance as a parent and meet their needs as their needs arise, as you so beautifully said earlier. And that is how I parent. Meet the need as the need arises. And when the need arises within me, I need to meet that need. And then I can continue parenting with my heart forward, with compassion, with love, with patience, with all those things.
Yeah. Are you good at catching it? Because I know for a lot of parents I work with, that presents as getting angry, or it presents as feeling frustrated with their kids. That wound is popping up, and then they're like, I don't really want to own that, so I'm going to just try and shut whatever you're doing down. And it's sometimes it's hard for them to catch, because, they're in the story, their nervous system's peaking, everything in them's going, this is wrong, this is dangerous, this is bad. And it's hard for them to kind of bring themselves back and go, oh, there's something here for me. Are you good at catching it, or how does it turn up for you? Do you find yourself getting frustrated, or do you shut down? Where can you track where it turns up?
Yeah, I think I'm a very level-headed person. My mum, who raised me, never raised her voice, ever. My dad never raised his voice. Like I'm the product of two incredibly gentle parents. And so I am never a yeller. It's so rare that I even raise my voice. So it never comes out in that way. But I have seen myself, and I can catch when I see it. I can catch it when it happens. I can shut down. And I am so much better now. I think when I was a little bit younger, I would kind of have these moments of like, I'd go quiet and I'd go internal and I'd feel my feelings. Now I can feel it and I can be like, all right, Mama's just going to have 1 second. And I'll often go and I'll say like, let me just finish this work thing. I'll go and have a breath in my room on my own and be like, all right, what is coming up? I reckon this little person is my 6-year-old self. And I'm just going to be like, I see you. You're totally safe. What do you need? All right, you need to be seen. Cool. And then I can go back to the situation about, all right, let's process that. So you felt like your sister was saying this to you and you weren't heard. And I think it was so funny. I was like on a drive just now with my au pair. We were going to work. I was getting fitted for this thing at work, and I was bringing her to work for the first time with my baby. And she said something to me and I was like, oh, wow. She said, you know, the family I was raised in, like we just weren't communicated with the way you communicate with your kids. Like you talk to them about their feelings. She was like, you talk to them about their emotions. Like if Bodhi is feeling upset about it, you sit down and you're like, I see you're feeling upset. Like, let's talk about what's happening for you. She was like, I haven't seen that. What is that? Like I didn't, and she's young. She's, you know, only just a new adult in this world. And she was like, oh, that was not my experience as a child. Like you're doing things differently. And I realized that I think this generation of parents, we are more open-minded to the idea that like our children have these whole big, rich inner worlds and they want to be seen and they want to be heard and their big feelings should be okay with us. And we need to be their emotional regulators. And so that is a big part of how we do things in our household. And if you're not regulated first, how can you meet them on the level that they need their emotions regulated? So,
I'm thinking people are going to listen to this and go, oh, what about Teresa's family? So beautiful. But I love what you're saying. And I say to parents all the time too, you know, I think this generation of parents are really courageous and brave because most of us, I mean, it sounds very different to you, but most parents I work with were really raised in that behaviorism paradigm. We love you when you're good, can take something away from you when you're bad. You know, feelings were repressed. We all learned to kind of push everything down. And now we've become parents and we have all this access to information and technology and support in a way that our parents and grandparents never did. And so now we are these parents that are, exactly as you say, reparenting ourselves as we are also trying to parent our children with a level of consciousness. And it's hard and it's sticky. And I say to parents all the time, it's messy. Like you're not going to always get it right. And you've got to be so compassionate with yourself when we don't, because we are trying to do something that wasn't done to us. And that's, I think, what often trips people up. And yet I feel really lucky that my kids are old enough now. And, you know, I kind of came to similar stuff, you know, with this parenting when my kids were younger. And really realized I wanted to do it differently and did a lot of that inner work and really kind of looked at what my triggers and shadows were and really tried to turn up and hold space for them. And what I see now in my adult children, all of my kids work with children. And so they work with kids with disabilities or just with children, and their ability to hold space for their feelings is so innate. It is so natural to them because they have that imprint and experience. And I see that, and I see that with a lot of the families I work with. And I often remind families that you know, if you are the one that is changing what has happened before you, that is such big work, and you have to really acknowledge yourself, and it takes a lot of courage to do it, and it can be clunky, but I promise you keep doing it, you will see what happens in this next generation. And that's what gives me hope, I think, for our future. Because probably, you know, like the work that you guys are doing with your platform and so many others, we are talking about this now, and people are doing the work, that we are seeing this next generation of kids that are going to come through that are going to be deeply kind and connected and take care of things in a whole other way. Because I think we have the courage to be like, oof, that didn't feel good. How do I repair that within myself to be able to do it differently? And I think that gives me hope.
Yeah, me too. Me too. We're more mindful, I
Yeah.
think. And a lot of that is as a result of all the big T's and the little T's and the traumas that we have had 0 to 17. And, you know, and they were doing the best that they could with what they knew, and what, like, the culture at the time, it was just a different way of raising children. And I was just lucky that my mum is just a sweet little love bug, and I was her whole world. And, you know, and my dad's just inherently a gentleman. Like, he was a businessman, and that was his real focus. Like, fatherhood wasn't like his main focus, but he was gentle and quiet and sweet. And so I got really lucky there.
And don't you realize, like, I'm a bit similar. I grew up with really kind, safe parents, you know, like, you know, of course there were needs I didn't get met in certain times, but very safe. And I never doubted their love for me. And you know, I've worked with thousands of parents over the years. I realize that is just the most extraordinary privilege to grow up in that, because a lot of people don't get that. And a lot of the work they're doing is having to heal what they didn't get in order to do it differently. So I so acknowledge the privilege of having that. And,
me too.
Yet I also have seen so many people transform that it's possible. It's so possible to heal.
I look at my husband, and he grew up in a really challenging environment. He was homeless as a child, and, you know, lived in abandoned buildings and cars with his 16-year-old mother. And so he had a really, really, really unsafe, dangerous childhood. But his mum loved him with all of her and did the best that she could. But I see him having to do the parts work. And he's got 6 kids, from a 7-month-old up to an 18-year-old. And so he is getting triggered all the different ages that his needs weren't met. And he's often like, you mothering Forrest, our son, is like so similar to Mark. Like, just his beautiful little spirit is so similar, this gentleness. And he was like, and he looks so much like Mark, that Mark's like, it is insane. I feel like I'm being reparented with Forrest. I'm watching you mother him and seeing what he's getting. He's like, it's healing. It's healing for me, but it's also really hard, and it comes up in so many different ways. And, you know.
That's so beautiful, isn't it? I mean, we really are all doing the best we can, aren't we?
We are. We really are.
I'm so curious, in raising 5 kids, from when you first started as a mum, like, and I often think about this for myself, what we kind of have as this ideal, and this is how I'm going to do it when we have our first kid, compared to your 5th. Are there things that you have totally relaxed on? Like, I think back to when I had Kai, my son, and we were like, he's not having sugar until he's 2, and there'll be no TV. They're just all the things. And then my 3rd baby, I remember she was laying on the floor once, and I walked in. She was like 4 months old, and the kids had like had a chocolate strawberry and they'd shoved it in her mouth, and I was like, oh yeah, she's right. Like, you
She'll
just
be
totally.
Right.
Yeah, she's fine. Is she bleeding? Nah, she's fine. It's all good. Is there stuff that you have totally relaxed on, where you've just kind of gone, you know, what has that been for you?
Definitely sugar I remember when I first had Bodhi, I was like, everything's going to be Montessori toys. It's all just going to be wood, no plastic. My son's not even going to look at plastic. You know, like there was so many things. I was like, no public pools, gross. No, you know, all the things.
Yeah.
And he was like so sick of the like 10th like wooden tree house that I got him for his 3rd birthday. He was like, all he wanted was the plastic little like G.I. Joe things and the like all the little figurines. And so that just went out the window. I was like, you know what? I'm just saying yes to this. But because Mark didn't have a lot of stuff. He lived in poverty as a child. So he goes really nuts. And I've actually had to pull him back on this. When he got little girls, when we had the first one, Poet, he went nuts on taking the girls shopping sprees, going to Target, buying the cheapest, jankiest, like made in China, plastic hot pink things that break after about 5 minutes. And he would be like, I brought another one. And he would just take them out all the time, getting them these things. I've had to put my foot down now. And I was like, no more. We're not doing it. I'm learning more about all the things that we're bringing into the house. We're not doing it. We can't do it. And so we've been trying to like detoxify with the plastic stuff. So I feel like we started in one area. We went way too far the other direction, but I am blaming Mark for that. Okay. And then, you know, we're like applying for Steiner schools and stuff in Byron Bay. And I'm like, we got to get rid of the plastic. The plastic has to go. So I feel like with Lotus, I'm kind of resetting and moving back to where I was closer to the first baby.
Yeah.
But it's funny. You just do your best. And I'm so relaxed. We're such a playful family where, you know, a lot of our boundaries are like, we have some boundaries. We're not very strict. We do have boundaries around screen time. That is something that I do feel pretty passionate about. But aside from that, it's like my kids drink bubble tea with me. We go right now I just Uber Eats us movie popcorn. We're all eating big bags of movie popcorn downstairs at 4 p.m. You know, so I'm pretty cruisy.
Yeah. And I think that's what having more kids really teaches you, to just be like, what's actually really important. And I always come back to this with my kids. I was like, I'm going to try and give them the most nutritious food, but then some days they're going to eat fairy bread for dinner. And I just got to be cool with that, because I just don't have the capacity in me because I'm depleted and I've come to realize that it is just actually all about the connection. You know, we are deeply connected. If I can meet their feelings, if I can take care of me, then we're going to be all right. You know, and we get so much information, don't we, when we become new parents, of you've got to do it this way and they have to get this education and they've got to only play with these toys and you have to eat this food. And it just becomes like a cage, because we have this belief then that if I'm not doing that, then they're not going to be all right. And I'm like, you got to put all that down, right? Because at the end of the day, really, it's about that beautiful connection that, you know, we have between them. So
it's so true.
When you look back and realize, it's a bit humbling, isn't it?
It is, but it's like what we always say, like our home is together. We are each other's home. It doesn't matter if our home is here in Vancouver or if it's in Byron Bay or if it's in Adelaide or Los Angeles, wherever we've lived around the world, like we are each other's home.
Yeah.
That's just the way that we do things. And
beautiful.
Togetherness, being together, that is the currency. That is the currency of life.
That's so beautiful. Just as we finish up, I know that you shared that you grew up Catholic, and, you know, I can really hear that spirituality to you is a really beautiful, important thing in how you mother and how you live your life. You know, again, through having children or just through your experiences through life, you know, how has that really evolved for you, you know, from that kind of whole Catholic upbringing to where it sits now? Has that, you know, have you had to let parts go? Have you had to kind of have a bit of reckoning with what you were taught? Like, where does that sit for you now?
It's a really interesting place because we live with my mum. We have this multi-generational family, and my mum is really a devout Catholic, and she's very connected to her faith. And it's such a big, important thing in her life. And I learned many years ago not to question her, not to get into a debate with her about it, not to judge her for her beliefs, and just really hold the space for her because it's so integral to who she is. And I really make sure that she gets to Mass every Sunday. That means so much to her. And even though I am no longer a Catholic, I will say that growing up and going to a Catholic school for 13 years, I went to a school that was relatively open-minded. It wasn't shoved down my throat, and it ingrained some really beautiful morals in me. I think when I reached about age 14, 15, I started to question what I had been taught. And I think the seed of doubt was planted when I'd always been told that our religion was the right religion, and the other religions are false gods. And I remember thinking like, oh, those poor people, they don't know that their God is not real. And then I started questioning it, thinking, hang on a second. If I was born in that country, in that family, I would think that that's the right God and that the Catholics were wrong. And then if I was in that family, I would think that those guys are wrong. And then suddenly I started realizing, like, hang on a second, is there a world in which I can just create my own relationship with what I think spirituality is? No one really knows who God is, what God is, right? Like, who has the actual scientific, physical proof to tell me this is the one, this is the way? And at that point, my dad's an atheist, a complete atheist. And then my mum's very Catholic, which is, of course, why their relationship didn't end up continuing on past 3 years. I just started asking those questions. And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to find my own relationship with spirit. And what does that look like? And I found this beautiful thing where I can say to my mum, we do the same things. We call in the same things. Like, I ask my mum to pray for me and she prays for me in her way. And I call things in and I talk to my team of light and I talk to my Nana, who I'm so connected with. It. She shows me little signs from the other side. Like, I believe in all of that stuff. We just might have different labels for it. And I am a little less dogmatic than I was before. The judgment is out of it. And I'm just like open to any and all ideas. And I just know that if I can lead with love and compassion and kindness, first and foremost, that is my spirituality. And that's where I show up in my life. And whatever the great unknown is, I feel it. I know it's there. I don't have words to articulate exactly what it is, but it lights me up and it guides me, and it's a feeling. And I know my children share that with me too. They say they feel it when they look out in nature, when I look into the eyes of a creature, when I'm birthing my baby, and just all these little miracles. I feel that source, that light energy. I just don't know exactly what it is, and I'm okay with that.
Oh, I love that. That just sums it up so beautifully. And I guess what I hear in your words too, the wisdom of, we actually are all just looking for a belonging to something greater than us. And you're right, it comes in many different packages. And I love the wisdom of a teenager going, hang on, if I was born in a different country, what would that look like? I mean, it's kind of true, isn't it? Yeah, we see so much conflict in the world happen because we believe we are right. Yet I think ultimately, and exactly as you're saying, it's actually about a deeper connection to something, but also to ourselves. And that's where the magic sits, doesn't it? That's really beautiful.
So true. It's so true.
Teresa, you are just such, you said, when you're in that flow state, you are just such a beacon of flow in your life, just in your sharing and just how you mother and just, the work that you're doing in the world. It's really beautiful and inspiring. And, thank you so much for being here and just sharing part of your story. This whole podcast is about being human and being real. And for me, I really wanted to start it because I have this saying, like, if we could see behind everyone's story, we would have nothing but compassion for everybody because we would totally understand the path that we've all walked to get to where we are. And so, I'm so grateful for you sharing, your beautiful story and your journey.
Thanks, Lael.
What would you like people to know? Is there anything going on? You've got Mother Days, you've got your Love Well product. What would you like people to know? Where can they find you, or what do you want them to know about what you've got going on?
Well, whatever they want to know, I guess. I have the podcast, the Mother Days, and it is sort of that intersection of motherhood and spirituality, and we get very woo-woo on the podcast, but we also have such a giggle, and we're so cheeky, and we tell such funny, wild, crazy stories. And that's really fun. And then, I have these beautiful wellness products by my company, Love Well. And I'm so passionate about them and just helping families to find ease with wellness. And making sure that your kids are meeting all their nutritional needs, but in a way that's easy, very quick. You're not having fights over shoving vegetables down their throats. And that was really the reason we started Love Well in the first place. So it's just for the ease of living, and it's wonderful. It's direct to consumer right now, and it's all really word of mouth, and we have such a huge amount of repeat customers, and that means the world to us because I know that it's having such a positive impact on people's lives, and that is a beautiful thing. So there are two other areas of my life that I'm really passionate about, as well as the acting and mothering, of course.
Well, beautiful. Go and check them out, everybody. Well, may your shoot tomorrow just be full of flow. May it be amazing, and you get to the end of your day and just go, that was the best ever. I hope it's amazing. I hope it's amazing.
I appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much, Teresa. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy staying human.
Thanks for sharing this time with me. You can find my book, Own Your Story, at bookshops or listen to the audiobook on Audible. I even read it myself. You can stay connected with Humans Being on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. We love to hear from you, so please leave a comment, question, or contemplation. And visit my website, laelstone.com.au, where you'll find lots of great resources and courses for you to explore. This podcast is produced by Nigel Carboon, recorded by the crew at We Make Online Videos, designed by Mike Gall, and our original music is created by Josh Reed. Humans Being is produced on the lands of the Bunurong and Wadawurrung people. We pay respect to their unique and diverse cultures and to elders past, present, and future. Until next time, stay connected and don't forget to be human.